The Critical Conversations Project convened a multidisciplinary group of experts who explored spiritual approaches to ethical, environmental, and transcendent issues and the built environment. This session was dedicated to environmental adaptation and ecotechnology and concluded with panelists sharing their ideas, solutions, and hopes for the future. We began with the question: how may sustainable built and natural ecosystems be in spiritual and material harmony with nature, the cosmos, and the resources of the earth?
I would say that for all designers, architects, landscape architects, urban designers, our approach to sustainability is what I would call limited so far, not nearly enough. And I would say that we need to reimagine our built environment in a really different way. Our buildings need to be givers, not takers. We need to have different kinds of relationships with all kinds of community groups to be able to realize a building that not only gets built but has a kind of long-term performance and adaptability that can respond to all kinds of changes and not be rigid but really flexible in our future.
Sustainability means a balance between environments and human dependence on those environments. So if you think of any relationship, any system, when there starts to be an imbalance, either physiologically or emotionally, it can't be sustained indefinitely. And I think that's where we are right now in our relationship with the earth.
Sustainable cities for me are places where we have rethought the relationship to nature. For many years in American cities, we've looked to either push nature and natural systems away and separate ourselves from them, or to kind of selectively bring different aspects in bits and pieces throughout the city, and perhaps then only for a selected few within that city. What needs to happen in the future, and what is happening in some cities now, is to create a city that integrates functional natural systems throughout the entire city and really thinks about the city not as a collection of buildings, but as a fabric rooted in the public realm. And for me, when I talk about the public realm, I include not only designed landscapes like plazas and parks and that sort of thing, but also infrastructure, streets, highways, waterfronts, industry like actual ports and facilities that we need to keep the city running. Almost any space outside of the building walls counts as the public realm.
We need a change in our thinking about the impacts of human development on nature, and we need a regenerative practice, not one that retains the status quo. So I tend to stay away from terms like sustainability, which entrenches an established worldview, and use words like regenerative in order to open up new spaces for the design imagination.
We still seem to kind of rely on technology as the default kind of solution for achieving sustainability. And coming from my spiritual background or my theological background, I would suggest that, we need to kind of, not that technology isn't important, but we also need to be able to expand our empathetic horizon to kind of enable us to relinquish a more egocentric or anthropocentric kind of perspective to one that is earth-centered and ecocentric, that recognizes the earth's needs as primary and those of the human as derivative. Because I think we continue to operate from the hubris that assumes we can have healthy humans on an unhealthy planet.
I would say that right now we're working with fairly traditional definitions of what is an architect, what is a landscape architect, what is an urban designer, and they tend to be always couched in terms of the relationship with the, quote, client. I think that's an old model that really needs to be rethought, because these kinds of nonprofits, advocacy groups, political groups, business improvement groups, design review committees need to be players within a kind of larger constellation.
We need diverse voices at the table in order to be able to chart a new path forward, because the way that we've been operating for decades hasn't really resulted in the kind of sustainability that we want.
Working with different actors in the design and development of cities, from architects to urban planners to landscape architects, really becomes a wonderful new kind of choreography that we can develop over time together and with various communities in order to get this a collaborative expression of the city, and multi-species one too.
So there is a multidisciplinarity in looking at our environments, built and natural environments, and the fusion of the both in order to create not only greater sustainability, but greater perspectives for health, in one in which health is such a rare commodity, a full commodity in that who sense of emotional, physical, and mental health. I mean, people who have all three are very lucky indeed these days.
I think challenging our mental models and perceptions will lead us to new ways of understanding what it is that we're designing and how we understand what sustainability is and what it means for the people who live in the places where we're designing.
We have designed several sacred spaces for really different religions: Judaism, Catholicism, Taoism, and First Nations gathering. And I would say the lessons we've learned from all of those groups is that they really want to be connected to nature. And this kind of direct relationship between places of worship and nature, being able to physically view the kind of awe and wonder of the world, really allows each of these such different faith groups to continually recontextualize what they do, why they do it together, in harmony with nature. So to observe these subtle shifts of steam and mist and weather changes, seasonal changes, as part of revisiting their liturgy every day, I just think is so meaningful and so important. So it's not something new or revelatory, but this kind of demand for this proximity, this kind of alignment. So you're almost bringing nature into your place of worship.
The design of St. Gabriel's is all about the horizontal. So the entire worship facility is oriented, instead of the vertical, towards an outdoor garden. So the sacred space of the interior actually extends out into the sacred space of the garden, which is sort of gives an opportunity for the building to serve as kind of a pedagogical opportunity to remind us that actually creation or the universe or the earth for humans is the primary revelatory experience of the divine. So, which is quite a different orientation than our traditional Christian worship.
So we worked with a remarkable group of Catholic women, and they asked us a really profound question. They asked us, how can we, in our building, describe what we value as a community, and how can it speak about that when we are no longer here? So I would say for me that goes way beyond just meeting so many rooms and a kitchen and dining hall. It actually is about a kind of a different level of investigation. And for us, we had to work really hard to both address their spiritual needs. Their chapel was very much the heart and soul of their project, but they also really demanded an environmental agenda. And they wanted the greenest building that they could afford.
Nature provides both direct and indirect health benefits in our cities. You can think of all the ecological benefits, and they start from the fact that the most fundamental and basic is that nature provides shade. Shade can make the difference of up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit in temperature differential, so that some people are affected by urban heat islands much more than others. And under a shade canopy, you're also more likely to conduct physical exercise or meet with other people, so that socialization also moves this whole health equation forward. On top of that, nature is shown, or street trees in particular, are shown to diminish violence in neighborhoods. And heat brings up levels of violence. So put those two things together. And so by depriving nature and residents, I should say neighborhoods and residents of nature contact, we are experiencing all of these detriments to health at much higher levels.
I think that, we need to be able to get beyond human exceptionalism as an a priori value and really look at the way the universe has evolved over its 14.5 billion years of cosmogenesis, always moving towards greater diversity or differentiation, greater subjectivity or interiority, because the universe is not a collection of objects so much as it is a community of subjects. And because of those two, also always towards greater community and interconnectedness, sort of this web of life, if you will. So if we really take a moment as architects and instead of, being busy with problem solving, kind of take a moment to be absolutely present with all of our senses, sort of expanding our empathetic horizon to really, really pay attention to the voices of the earth as a way of ensuring that we can bring about a more mutually enhancing human-earth relationship.
The story we missed was the story of Sergei Vinogradsky, who was identifying microbes in agriculture as being responsible for some of these mineral cycles, the nitrogen cycle, the carbon cycle, sulfur cycles. And he really identified the importance of microbes as being the base of the biosphere and actually making the living world. And so by the turn of this century, we have a very negative view of microbes, although the molecular biology tools have shown us how amazing and extraordinary they are. They can transform our waste into stuff that we can use. They can make environments work in ways that we do not have the intelligence or the physical capability of doing. So an example would be the Living Architecture project, for which I was a coordinator. It's a European Union project that ran from 2016 to 2019. It was delivered successfully, and what we did was we created little cities of microbes, called them bioprocessors, and that we could feed them household waste, and they would transform that waste into useful things, like cleaned water. They can also produce bioelectricity, and they can produce it at a number of volts. We can imagine from our work with the Living Architecture project that 12-volt households based only on organic waste would be possible, and that would dramatically reduce our carbon footprint.
I think that the issue of sustainability needs to be thought of at multiple scales. For example, one project that's really part of the public realm is an overlooked system of back alleys, laneways in the city of Toronto. They've been there for a really long time and really not regarded highly, a lot of sort of unused garages and just not cared for. I think that over the last 20 years, through the efforts of architects, urban designers, nonprofit groups, and politicians, there's been a complete transformation. And so what we actually thought of was leftover and throwaway is actually now really beginning to be seen as a really valued public realm, as a place to address stormwater issues, greening issues, ways to have places to live and work and play, addressing affordability in housing. And so something that, had never been really considered to be really having any potential is now an untapped resource.
So in building on new processes and new ways of working, I think we can also start to ask ourselves, what is the impact of the work that we've done, and to really spend time thinking about and diving into the realities, quantifying what is the impact of public spaces that we've built. Do they actually manage stormwater in the way that we want them to? What is the impact of increased trees and greenways on the numbers of air pollutions and asthma levels? What are the ways that people are able to access our open spaces and receive the mental health benefits from being in nature and being in community with one another, seeing different people out living their lives, enjoying, making music, playing? What are the actual benefits of those things?
Nature returns us to a sense of humility. We cannot feel important before that sunset or before the canyon. But at the same time, in experiencing awe and wonder in the big things, we can also find it in the very small things of nature, the little patterns and the uniquenesses and the tiniest aspects of creation. Make us see, wow, there is just a hand out there that has an extraordinary and sometimes humorous imagination. And I can't help personally but experience that sense of awe. If we deprive people of that opportunity, think of how diminished we will be.
In order to make a regenerative transformation of the way we live, underpinning human development and embodied in architectural practice, is to change our perspectives. Change our perspectives about intelligence. It is not just humans that know things, other agencies, things that are not human, the elements of the world know things that we don't. And we need to pay attention to those intelligences and hear what they're saying to us so we may work better with them.
Well, the great epiphany for me was, recognizing that the universe from its very beginning has had a psycho-spiritual dimension in addition to its physical material dimension. I think it was Teilhard de Chardin who first identified, or at least, articulated that reality about the universe. So for me, as an architect, I truly believe that my creativity is completely influenced and dependent upon the diversity of creativity that declares itself within the natural world.
For me, a large part of thinking about cities and sustainability is to reframe the dominant thinking of what is the individual interaction versus what is the communal interaction. And I think that we really need to fundamentally transform, as a society, our approach to the built environment to one that prioritizes collective health of humans and of the open spaces of the earth itself, and to one that really understands how to live together in a healthy community. And for me, that is at its core a spiritual question. What is our relationship to each other and to the earth, and how do we play that out as design professionals and as members of society?
I think if each of us saw ourselves as a person depicted in a group portrait rather than a selfie, I think we would be much better off.
With that really comes a kind of humility in our design, in that we are co-authors, we are collaborators, and we are agents of nature working with the substances of nature around us, and maybe through us, maybe channeled through our societies and cultures and desires. Maybe we can bring nature with us on the journey to help persuade nature that actually we're not the bad guys, that the ways of working and thinking are egalitarian, and invite nature into our spaces.
We need to act well, and we need to act quickly to really be able to make a difference in the kind of planet that we're on. And I think the sooner we can do that, the better.
I'm absolutely convinced that the universe and the earth, in our precipitous situation right now, is calling us to kind of reimagine our relationship, reestablish our relationship, which for me means that we relinquish our exploitive relationship to the earth, understand and appreciate the intrinsic value of every living and non-living entity that we share this planet with. And actually, whether we're architects or lawyers or accountants or in the medical profession, that we accept the great challenge, to participate in the great work that will bring about this mutually enhancing relationship with the earth.